Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show today. Welcome to Kicking It with Kano. This is my co-host, Sam Madrid. I'm Atticus Voss. Today, what are we going to be talking about, Sam?
Today we're just going to dive into McLuhan's medium is the message.
Medium is the message.
Medium is the message.
What do we think that means? Let's find out.
Yeah, let's talk about him a little bit.
Remember to like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Comment below.
Answer your questions. See, when we started this research about McLuhan, it was difficult to understand.
Yeah, it still is.
But we're going to do our best to help you understand a little bit more about medium is the message. And if you have more questions, please let us know.
Always thanks for tuning in to Kicking It with Kano.
All right, Atticus.
Let's talk about it.
Let's go for it.
So let's talk a little about who was McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan. Who was this guy? Where was he from? Why do we care? He was born in the early 1900s, died in the 80s, and he predicted the influence of media and technology on society. He actually predicted that the internet would come forth from this technological revolution that we've had in the past 50, 60 years. And so he actually had a huge impact on a lot of the theories in psychology, a lot of things that are kind of important in our day-to-day. And so studying him has been really interesting, understanding he was, how, I think kind of wise he was looking forward.
The theorist that he is, the theory that he promotes, right?
Yeah. And he was Canadian.
Canadians
cool.
get,
They get it. Yeah.
We know.
Yeah. So Sam, what did he mean by the medium is the message?
So this is where we're breaking it down, Atticus, right?
Break it down.
What does this mean? Okay. Medium is a message. So according to McLuhan, what this means is that the means by which information is sent or received is more important than the information itself.
Say that one more time.
Right. So the means by which information is sent or received is more important than the information itself.
So it doesn't matter what you're saying, it matters how you're saying it.
Right.
Maybe that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but that's kind of where we're heading with it.
Right. McLuhan really focuses on, what is the product or what is the vehicle that is driving this information, that is sharing this content.
Okay. Okay.
And so with that, McLuhan goes into a bunch of examples from the past. He uses Kellogg's and Cadillacs, but he goes into a couple others. Atticus, what are two examples that McLuhan covers to help describe and portray and explain his theory?
If I'm thinking right, I think one thing he talks about is the electric light. That the message, the message of the electric light is not necessarily what we get from the light, but it's the fact that the light changes everything that we do. I think one example he uses, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but he used the example of a baseball game, right? And a baseball game played at night, right? You have to have lights to play a baseball game.
Right.
And so the message, is not necessarily the game or what happens in the game, but it's the fact that we can even play the game because we have the light, if that makes sense.
So essentially, McLuhan is saying, without that light, what's the point?
There's no point.
What's the point of the game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So therefore, the medium, the light, content, baseball game, and then the message is the light.
Is the light.
Because without it, nothing could happen.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Kicking it with Kano.
Well done. That was a good example. That was the first. Yeah. That was a strong example he used.
Yeah. I think another one he uses was the railroad early in the 1800s.
The railroad tracks. Yep.
Yeah. He talks about how railroads didn't necessarily create the travel, but they definitely sped it up. They revolutionized travel completely. Instead of taking weeks for a message to get across the United States, or months, it would take maybe a week or maybe 2 weeks or just a couple of days, depending on where you're sending it. So it revolutionizes communication. And so the medium, railroad, but actually it's also the message, because without it, it wouldn't. There wouldn't be a big difference, right?
Right.
If I'm understanding it
correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Super interesting. So Sam, what are we thinking? Do you agree with McLuhan about the medium being the message?
Atticus, it's interesting. Part of me does. I feel like his theory is enough to grasp, but I can understand what he's trying to say. Essentially that vehicle, the means by which that information is given is the key fundamental part of any of that, right?
Exactly.
Without that, with the railroad example, with the lights, even as we're looking forward to the future, with technology nowadays, right? I think he talks more about radio, right? He talks about the television. He talks about some more media
Yeah.
that's coming forth, and he's just explaining that process never
stops. Like it keeps going, right?
It keeps moving forward.
Mediums become messages, messages become mediums, mediums become messages. Like it kind of repeats, is what he's kind of saying, correct?
And I could be skipping ahead of us now, but I'm thinking, based off of what McLuhan has shared here, that he really focuses on how that medium, or the media, as he gets into, as we'll get into, becomes essentially a part of us, part of ourselves, right? An extension of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why McLuhan really just hammers this in, right?
Sure.
He's really focused on this is important and because of this. So I shared a few of those, like, technology matters and means.
Yeah.
But what are some other means of technology that McLuhan shares, or that are in our future, that relate to this medium as the message?
Well, I think one thing especially is social media. I think that's a big thing as well, Social media is like, it's a way that we transfer information. It's completely changed how we communicate one with another, right? And so that has gone from, it is a medium, and what we're getting from it is, let's say, Instagram, right? You have Instagram, you get a lot of content from Instagram, but without Instagram existing, without it being there, none of this content would exist at all. And so therefore the medium is much more important than the content itself. Is at least, from what I'm understanding, right?
Absolutely. No, McLuhan also shares that sometimes there can be a medium within a medium.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's where it gets our brains really thinking, and it's one of those hard things to grasp.
Exactly. That's how
it keeps going.
That's how it keeps going.
It keeps going
exactly.
forward.
Because that content becomes a medium in itself, and therefore becomes a message, right? Super interesting.
For sure.
Yeah. Sam, why do you think it's important to instill self-discipline within the technology that we have, according to what we're learning about McLuhan? Why do you think that's important?
Because his theory is valid. We can see that how it has affected the generations, right? How it affects our generation
how
now.
the medium has affected us more than what is the content.
Exactly. The medium is the message.
Yeah.
And so, discipline, very, very key. Let me just share real quick. I had a Professor Kano here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, taught us very well the importance of kind of making that separation, right?
Of course, yeah.
Go in his classroom, no phones.
No phones.
No phones.
No phones.
Because it becomes an extension of ourselves. Not that it's a bad thing, but I think that's what McLuhan's trying to get at here.
It's almost like a part of ourselves that we shouldn't let into the classroom because it's distracting, right? In a way.
And a part I don't think we touched on, Atticus, is that McLuhan shares why this is so important. Why is his theory so vital? He talks about the elites.
Okay.
Right? He goes into the power of the elites, right?
Yeah.
Government, corporations. He just talks about, and media, sorry, those three.
Yeah.
Government, corporations, and media.
For sure.
And how those three means, right? They drive that power force, and that drives separation. Right?
Yeah.
Without the radio, without the TV, without our phones, there wouldn't be so much separation amongst us as humans, right?
So the more we invest in technology, the more we become separated one from another.
And that's not the purpose, technically, of it, right?
But it happens. People are more reclusive a lot of times because they don't have to go out and talk to people. They can just sit at home and scroll on their phones, things like that.
So going back to your question, Atticus, why it's important with this discipline, learning, actually going through and serving a mission for my church.
Oh, yeah.
We had some standards that we had to learn how to use technology in wise ways.
Yeah.
And they gave us what was called safeguards for technology, which essentially we couldn't use our phones unless it was for certain things. So certain times of the day, we would plan our day, make sure we were carrying through our plans. But if our phones were used for distraction, eliminated.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be on it.
Yeah.
And I just think that was a part of his installing that self-discipline within myself.
For sure. Being able to recognize when you're using technology in an appropriate way versus using it to waste your time.
Absolutely.
I think that's super important.
And I think that's essentially what McLuhan's trying to get at here. Obviously, we haven't covered all of his message and what it all means, but
A lot more to it.
But folks, I hope that helps you understand a little bit more of McLuhan, a little bit more of his theory. But as Atticus was saying earlier, we're going to take a look at those comments, answer any questions we can. But as always, thanks for your time.